Hey everybody, it's Kira and welcome back to my channel. So today I have my favorite books of 2020. So these are not going to be ranked in any specific order, but I do have them separated into like 3 categories. So I read a bunch of amazing books last year, so I'm very excited to talk about them. So the first category I'm going to talk about is sequels that came out this past year. And to start off with, we have to address, of course, A Sky Beyond the Storm by Sawa Tahir. This is the final book in the Ember and the Ashes quartet, and which is my favorite book of all time. Ember is anyways. And I absolutely loved Sky. I felt like it was a really good conclusion to the whole series. It did a really good job like wrapping up everybody's storylines. I was a little worried because there was like a newer element that gets introduced in the beginning of the book, and I was like, how is this going to play out throughout the book, and like are we still going to be like have resolution with it? And I think it worked really well. I really loved where all the character storylines went, even though it's very tragic. I mean, all of them have very tragic backstories, and then the events of this quartet, like all of them go through the ringer. But I was very happy with where Elias and Laia and Helene ended up. I loved getting even more backstory into the Nightbringer. I'm really excited to read like Reaper and then Sky like back to back, because Reaper is when you really get a lot more of the Nightbringer's backstory, and then yeah, in Sky you get more, so just like understanding him as a character. There was a lot more romance in this book, which I was very happy about because it kind of makes up for the lack of in Sky. So I loved seeing, especially Laia, because Laia's been my favorite character since the beginning, seeing her like at the end of this book and just thinking about how much she has grown as a character since the first book. Oh, so good. And I think this is my second favorite book. So I think my ranking of the Ember Quartet is Ember and then Sky. And then I think Reaper and Torch. I don't really know yet, but Sky was definitely like so amazing and one of my favorite reads of 2020. I finished it in like 4 days and definitely procrastinated a lot of homework for it, but I don't care. It was amazing and I'm so glad that I read it. So if you haven't read the Ember Quartet, please go read them. They're incredible. And then the only other book that I have in this category of sequels that came out this last year is Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the final book in the City of Brass trilogy, the Daevabad trilogy. I'm stupid sometimes. The Daevabad trilogy. This book was so good. It was also incredible. Again, like you get more backstory into like the main villains, and especially Dara, and like, I mean, you get his backstory somewhat in Kingdom of Copper, but like even more so in Empire of Gold. I was so excited to learn that this book picks up almost immediately after the last book ended, which is good because the last book ended on a huge cliffhanger. That was one thing about Sky, is that it took place like a few months after the ending of Reaper, which I was kind of sad about, but like Empire of Gold picks up almost immediately, so I was so happy about that beginning, the beginning like bit of it with Nari and Ali like just together alone in Egypt was so good. I really loved it. And like we get more into Ali's backstory and like what all of these like water creatures and like their, I don't want to say backstory, but their history and like how they interact with the world of the Devas. It was so good. I really loved this book. And I really loved how each of the characters ended their stories. I feel like they each had a very satisfying arc over the whole series, and it was just incredible to read. It was so much fun. I read it this summer when it came out, and I was very happy that I did. So if you haven't read the Daevabad trilogy, the first book is the City of Brass, and then Kingdom of Copper and Empire of Gold. I mean, these books are kind of big, like this one especially, but it's so worth it. It's so good, and I love them a lot. Okay, so the next category is going to be New to Me series. There's one debut that came out this year that's in this as well, but the other 2 are New to Me series. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Starbound Trilogy by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. So that is These Broken Stars, This Shattered World, and Their Fractured Light. So this is, I'm just going to hold up the first book. So this is a sci-fi trilogy, and it's about like three sets of two characters. This first one is about Tarver and Lilac, and they end up getting crash landed on a planet from their starship, I guess spaceship. I don't remember if there was like a special word that they had for it or not. But anyways, they get crash landed on a deserted planet and have to learn how to survive together. This one is probably my least favorite. Then we get into This Shattered World. And this one is about Jubilee and Flynn, and they are on opposite sides of a war in their own planet. And they Jubilee is like a soldier who's trying to like keep the peace, and Flynn is one of like the locals who are trying to like resist the people that Jubilee is with. I can't remember anybody's names other than like the main characters. But they end up like, well, okay, Flynn kidnaps Jubilee, and then they have to kind of figure out how to work together. And then in the last book, Their Fractured Light, we have Gideon and Sophia. And Sophia is trying to run a con, and Gideon happens to be there, like in the place where she ends up running the con, and then the con goes bad, and Gideon ends up helping her. This one was definitely my favorite of the three. But anyways, that was really long. All this to say, these are falling down. So anyways, all of these are, we're trying to defeat the evil corporation that is kind of behind and all of these different things happening. The reason that I loved these so much is I listened to the audiobooks. I'm sure I would have still loved them even if I was reading them physically, but the audiobooks for this series are so good. Anyways, I'm doing a terrible job explaining these, but this series is really good, so if you enjoy sci-fi, I highly encourage you to read the series. Also, like, Amy Kaufman helped write the Illuminate files, so like, she's incredible. I haven't read anything else by Megan Spooner, but I know like the two of them together are like amazing. So yeah, if you haven't read it, check out the Starbound Trilogy. And then my next series also has Amy Kaufman in it and Jay Kristoff, and that is Aurora Rising and Aurora Burning by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. These were incredible. Oh my goodness. I think it's called the Aurora Cycle or something. I don't remember what the series is called, but these two books were amazing. And again, I listened to the audiobooks for these. Well, okay, no. I listened to the audiobook for the first one, and then the second one, the audiobook was going to take too long, and I happened to find it at my physical library. So I ended up reading the second one in physical form. But the audiobook is also amazing for this. They have different voice actors for each of the characters, which is just so fun. And the banter in this book gives me life. So this series is about this main character named Aurora, and she ends up getting, she's going on a mission to like colonize this distant planet, and then when she wakes up, she finds out it's been like, I don't remember, like 100 years, 200 years, I don't remember. It's been like a really long time that she was like in cryo sleep or whatever. Then you have Squad 312, and they end up, they're all like the leftovers from their training school, which is the Aurora Academy. So they all get put into this squad together, and then they're sent on this mission, which is just like a supply mission or whatever, but you find out it's not actually just that, and there's a lot more going on in this world and that we have to figure out, and they end up on the run together. And all of these characters are so funny and play off of each other so well, but at the end of the day, it's one of those like found friendships and like found family kind of things where at the end of the day, like they all really love each other and really care about each other. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily start off that way, but it's so good. And like I said, the banter in it is incredible. And I really loved just watching Aurora get thrown into it, as well as all the rest of them get thrown into this like squad basically, and they just have to figure out how to navigate both like their personal relationships, but also like trying to like survive and be on the run from the government that is a little bit more shady than they think. It's so good. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait for the last, I think it's the last book, I assume anyways, because they've been doing like trilogies, but I cannot wait for the next book to come out, especially because the Aurora Burning, the second book, ends on a huge cliffhanger. So I mean, if you don't like waiting for books, maybe wait for the series to like finish coming out, because I read the cliffhanger ending and I was like, you ended the book like that? Like, I haven't had that bad of a cliffhanger ending since Mark of Athena. Like, if that tells you anything. that it was a terrible cliffhanger ending. We're in like the middle of something and then the book just ends. Come on, guys. So I'm very, very excited for the third book to come out, and I just need to read it. So if you really enjoy like fun, found family aspects and lots of teasing and banter back and forth, check out this series. It's amazing. And then the last book in my like new to me series section is A Song of Race and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. This is actually a debut novel, so it starts off a new way fantasy. I don't know how many books it's going to be, this series. It's so good. Oh my goodness, it's incredible. Also need the second book now. So this is about two main characters. We have Malik, who is trying to save his sister. His sister gets kidnapped by like this evil demon guy, and the demon guy is like, if you want your sister back, you need to kill the princess. He's like, don't want to do that, but I need my sister back, so okay. And then we also have the princess, who's named Karina, and her mother has just died, and she finds out that there's like this magic spell thingy that she can do to get her mother back. And so all of her energy is like focused on like getting her mother back. Okay, so then you have this like competition kind of thing, and it's like you pick one person from each of their like people groups that has to compete for their people group, and the winner ends up getting like a prize from the princess. But Karina needs, for this spell to bring her mother back, she needs the heart of a dead king. So she makes the prize for winning to marry her, which would then make them a king, which would then, she would kill them to get the heart of a dead king. You see where I'm going with this? So then Malik ends up, mostly by accident, ends up entering this competition and gets chosen to compete for his people group. I can't remember if it's people group or land group. It might be land group. Or there's something with magic. I can't remember. I read this summer, and I've read too many books since then. But I'm so excited to reread it because it's so good. Anyways, so then you have like Karina and Malik, who are both trying to kill each other, but the other one doesn't know that they're trying to kill each other, and that they both have like ulterior motives for doing this whole competition thing. It's incredible. The writing is fantastic. The world building is so good. The second book also, like, this cover, crazy, incredible, beautiful. The cover for the second book, I'll put it here, Psalm of Storms and Silence, is also just like immaculate. Oh, beautiful. These covers are gonna look so good together. I'm so excited. But yeah, so this was another one of my favorites from this year. It was so good, and I'm super, super excited for the second book. Again, ends, like, the ending just leaves me with wanting more. It's not like the biggest cliffhanger, not like Aurora Burning was, but it does leave me wanting more, so I'm very, very excited about this. And if you haven't read it yet, please go read it. And then my last section of this video is just going to be like standalones. Most of these are contemporary, but there's one that's kind of like historical fiction. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Don't Read the Comments by Eric Smith. This is a super fun, nerdy book about two main characters who really love online gaming. The first character is Divya, and she, I think I'm saying that right, I could be wrong though, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I've said it in my head. So Divya has a, she streams this online game for, I think for like a YouTube kind of community. And she's kind of a famous streamer, but she gets a lot of hate comments because of being a woman, but just like playing games, and like that's what happens a lot of the time. So she loves playing this game mostly for fun, and she ends up like taking sponsorships because, wait, is she the one? No, she's the one who she's like trying to help her family stay afloat. So that's why she takes sponsorships, so that she can have some extra money to like bring in some money for her family. The other main character is named Aaron, and he's the one that plays for fun. So he really enjoys watching Divya's streams and stuff, and kind of follows her a little bit, but just like really loves playing this game for fun. So the two of them end up meeting online, and they kind of strike up a friendship, and it just is about like the wonders of online friendships, and then they end up meeting in person too, and they go to a convention at the end, which is super fun. But yeah, it's just like them having fun playing this online game and just the joys of it, but also like the hardships that come along with doing things online and having a platform online. So it's super cute and fun and nerdy and just all around a good time. So I highly encourage you, if you haven't read it, like go read it. It's really fun. Then we have Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I have to say, Elizabeth Acevedo narrates her own audiobooks, so if you can listen to the audiobook for her books, I would highly encourage you to do that. And reading them physically, like, maybe read it twice, once physically and once audiobook. It's so good. She writes in verse, so her I don't know, is that considered prose? Her verse and her words are just so lyrical and beautiful, and like, because she narrates the audiobook, it like makes it sound so good. Anyways, so Clap When You Land is about two girls, and they both live very separate lives, but they end up finding out that they actually share a father when their father is killed in a plane crash. So Yahira lives in New York City, and she's got a really good place in New York City, but her father always leaves during the summer to go to the Dominican Republic, and so she wants to go with her father at some point. And then Camino lives in the Dominican Republic, and she kind of feels stuck there a little bit, but all these things change when their father dies, and they end up learning about the existence of the other, and Yahira ends up actually going to the Dominican Republic and meets Camino. So it's so good. It's really about like these two girls learning to become like friends, and what does being sisters mean and family means, but also like how do you feel when your family's kept secrets from you, and just it's so good. It's so beautiful. I love Elizabeth Acevedo's writing. It's just amazing. So if you really love like books written in verse, first of all, or just books about family and relationships and what those like I don't want to say the meaning of those, but you know what I'm talking about. I highly encourage you to read this book. It's just beautiful, and it's really cool, like hearing these two girls and their grief over losing their father, but then also trying to deal with like the weirdness that comes with finding out that like your father had this whole other life that you didn't know about. So it's incredible. Next up is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I finally read this book. Everybody on BookTube talks about it, so I was very excited. I found it at a used bookstore in Massachusetts. It was absolutely gorgeous when I went there for work this last summer. So it was like $2 or something. So I bought it and then I read it, and it's so good. Oh my goodness. This book is very atmospheric, and it's very confusing at the same time, so I understand why people like wouldn't enjoy the like choppiness of the storyline, but I really enjoyed trying to figure out the puzzle that is this book, and I cannot wait to reread it having a knowledge of like the whole story and then going back to the beginning. So it's kind of about these two magicians, Celia and Marco, and they're locked in this like battle of magic. So the thought is there's two different like schools of magic, of like how you can do magic, and they both have been kind of chosen almost against their will to participate in this like battle of magic. So then you have the whole Night Circus, which is just like this really crazy circus that ends up like picking up, like it's there one night and then disappears the next day. So you follow the circus. I think it takes place in the 1800s, I'm pretty sure. So you follow the circus as it like moves around, you follow different people within the circus, and you follow a couple people outside of the circus, all around this kind of frame narrative of Celia and Marco's battle, if you will. But they end up kind of falling in love instead of battling. I keep saying battle because like the rules are never really explained to either of them, and so I'm not really sure what like the rules are. They're both told like, oh, you'll just know when it's over. So I don't know, it was kind of weird, but this book is like so atmospheric. The writing is incredible and amazing, and it's just full of just this like magic within it, both in like the literal sense of like, okay, they're creating magic, but also in just like the circus is such an interesting idea in the first place anyways, and then you throw in all these special elements and things like, oh, it only comes like once a year, or like it disappears within a day, and all these people like end up following the circus and like kind of keeping tabs on it throughout Europe. It's, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe this book. It's just so good and amazing, and I'm so glad that I read it this past year. And then the last book on my list of my favorites from 2020 is Cat and Meg Conquer the World by Anna Primazza. So this book is really about just these two girls' friendships. So Kat has anxiety and gets kind of panic attacks, and Meg has ADHD and is just very like forgetful of things. But Kat ends up moving into a new province in Canada and ends up going to school with Meg, and they end up partnered for a science fair project. And so this book like follows their like, I don't know, journey doing their science fair or their science experiment or whatever, but at the same time, it's really about these two girls and their friendship. They have a really fun connection with this online streamer that they watch. So they both bond over like enjoying this online gamer and this specific game. It was kind of like League of Legends was what, like the vibes that I was getting from it. Yeah, it's really just about like the two of them becoming friends and then being there for each other, and they fight about stupid things and they fight about big things, but at the end of the day, like, they end up really just loving each other and being there for the other. Each of them take like a really big step for themselves to go and help their friend, which I just absolutely loved. It's so funny too because you get both of their point of views, and like they're so completely different because of anxiety versus ADHD. Their minds just work in such completely different ways, but they end up like really meshing together and kind of helping each other through a lot of the things that happen when you're in high school. So I really, really loved this book. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, so I feel like it's very underrated. But if you really love books about girl friendship or online streaming or just like fun, cute things like that, this book is so incredible and it's really fun. So that's it. Those are all of my favorite books that I read in 2020. Comment down below, let me know what your favorites were from the last year, or if you've read any of these books and want to talk about them. I'd love to in the comments below. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to follow me on social media, all my links will be in the description as always. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!